Welcome to Extra Aunties. I'm Auntie AK, the auntie of all aunties, and I'm here with...
I'm Nana, aka the Black Fairy, aka Dark and Lovely.
I'm all things sugar and shade, Sade.
Hey! And we are joined by... I don't know how to describe this baby boy, this wonderful, wonderful, amazing human being. You introduce yourself. Tell us.
Me?
Who you are. Yeah, who are you?
Whoa, okay. If my skin was a little lighter, I would have gone real quick. Hi, I'm Vernon Francois. People may be familiar with my work. I work with the likes of like Lupita, Serena Williams I have worked with, Willow Smith. Recently just worked with Doja Cat for the Met Gala.
Oh.
Amanda Stenberg.
Yeah.
Oh.
Perfect Afro.
Yeah.
Immaculate Afro.
And being responsible for some of global professional images on the professional side of hair care with like Redken, Matrix, Kerastase. Most recently, I'm aligned with Olaplex, who are disrupting the industry.
Yes, definitely.
And I'm known for creating a wider conversation around the beauty and efficacy of managing Afro hair patterns. And
yes, I love that. The beauty and the efficacy. I love it. So we've got the wonderful Vernon Francois here, and we've been wanting you on the show for a while.
Really?
Yeah. You've been on our to-do list, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm happy I left that comment.
Exactly. No, for real. And like the stars aligned. And basically, guys, if you missed it, I'm going to be a bit more specific. We discussed a viral video that caused quite a serious stir online. It had featured a young mixed race girl who was taken to a hair salon in Bournemouth by either her grandmother or her mother, and the salon run by Emerson Giuliani reported like the commentary around the girl's hair was not great.
You got your saying then?
Can I see your hair? Do you want to take that down? Wow, look at that. Let me see.
Yeah.
Oh, surprise me.
Charge. 84%.
Yeah, that looks like a surprise. And you want to lose all this? Yeah, you don't want to have it anymore.
No. Oh.
Okay, they can say anything. You guys gonna do what? While she's with us for hours?
We'll walk down into town and then we'll come back for
Yeah, there's a beach down the road. You can actually go for a swim.
Oh, there you go.
Wow, look at this. My goodness. Yes, it's hard work. This is hard work. I understand it.
I've tried so many different products and we can't seem to find anything that really suits her hair. And she hates it.
Well, it is very difficult. I tell you, it's very difficult. Like her hair type is not easy to look after. So what do you do? Keep it tight or like?
She wears it in bunches, plaited every day. So.
Okay. Have you tried everything, Anna? Have you tried plait and keep them? Like, because there's not much you can do. Like, even it's just too freezing tough. The curls. I wouldn't even know how to take care of that, to be honest. I'm not a specialist in curls, so I wouldn't know how to take care of that. But it wouldn't be easy to take care of it, no? Mm-hmm. So, are you okay to lose the curls then? Because this is the first time. It's probably not going to be 100%, but it'll be like 80% straighter than it is now.
I think as long as it's less frizzy, she'll be happy.
It'll be very different.
Yeah.
Very different. You're not going to miss it, are you sure? Okay.
No going back.
And just some of the language that was used around her, that, that hair wasn't light, and he himself was saying it's unmanageable. There's not much he can do with this. So the answer would be to straighten it and deal with this unmanageable hair. And we took umbrage with that and we spoke on it. We do Enemy of Progress in our main show, and we put the mother and the hairdresser in the bin because we felt like what they were saying and how they were handling this young lady was damaging to her self-esteem and her growth as a young mixed-race girl. We got loads of comments. The video went super viral, and people are still commenting today. It's about over a month ago, I think, by now.
Definitely our most viral video this year.
Yeah. But also, within that caused Mr. Hairdresser Extraordinaire to the stars to say something. And I think you said that this is extremely layered and complex. Who's ready to really discuss this? And responses to you were like, "We're ready. We need to have this conversation. It's so important." So just like we're going to get into it, but first and foremost, what did you kind of mean when you said this conversation is layered and nuanced in response to what we were saying?
Well, I also wanted to add to my intro, which I think is really significant to this conversation, is my most important client has been over 20 years in a salon. And so in part with witnessing what we all witnessed via a short clip, and I think we have to be conscious about that. We saw a short clip of a window into someone's experience. And I think upon learning and knowing what that lived experience is on both sides, because I've worked in the salon experience, I have and still have hundreds of people that message me or clients like that scenario. I've been the stylist on that scenario many times, but I've also been put in that same position in many shoot locations and big brands locations and working with producers and directors. I've been in that scenario with famous people and having to advocate for them because of the nuances of what you were all emotionally upset by. And so I think it's important that we try and understand how we respond versus reacting to when witnessing injustice and how we witnessed it, because it's very layered. I think it's also important that we recognize that she was brought to that location.
Yeah.
And so we have to go back a couple of steps and ask ourselves, how did she come to arrive at a place where she didn't feel that she was adequate enough to begin with, to then think that this journey was going to answer all of her prayers? And that is something that I don't think most of us are ready to have a conversation about.
Well, we're ready now.
I mean, even within the comments, there were people that were like, okay, it's one thing going at the mum and the hairdresser, but then within black spaces, there are lots of black parents who would do the same or would treat their kids the same and would be like, you need to relax your hair so it becomes manageable. And I do think there is a part of that conversation that isn't really being had. It is very reactionary. But within our daily lives, I know my hair was relaxed from when I was like 7. My mum relaxed my hair. So we have to kind of go through the steps that would put that woman to take her daughter to a salon to relax her hair.
For sure.
It is important.
It's critical because you have to put perspective into context and you have to understand why these people are walking in the shoes that they have, or did they have other options, other shoes to wear? And most often they didn't. And so when you're often left to walk in the shoe that you only have, you're arriving at pit stops that may not fit where you need to go, but you have to pass that to get where you got to get to. And therefore you're making choices that you have to make in that moment to survive. And we all have done that. If you're privileged enough to be a guardian or a parent, you have to do that. And then we also, we take race into a whole bigger conversation than what it doesn't actually need to be, simply because our professional artists that are from all ethnicities or all backgrounds that can work on all hair patterns. So throwing out here that this parent who happens to be white needs to have a black hairstylist is so contradictory, because I know there are a lot of black hairdressers who cannot work on Afro hair, as well as other people that may happen to be
Tell
white.
me about it.
And so, but no one's having that conversation.
That is true.
Yeah.
I think
And so
that's
shouting that and not really dealing with the elephant because it suits the narrative of the race card is very problematic. And we're not really addressing the underlying. You're about to kill me out here. I'm so sorry.
No. Do you know what?
But that's one of the things that we're not addressing, right? And this is, you're making it about race versus about someone's competence to do the job in hand, and that's part of the issue, right?
I think I think it's a very, very good point. And I think especially with these rise of these, I'm going to say Instagram, TikTok hairstylists who have no formal training and they are destroying people's hair on a daily, weekly, monthly basis.
Hourly.
And we see it when it goes viral, when someone's had a bad experience, it goes viral and everything like that. And it's just, something needs to be done about this. We need regulation. In some sort, we absolutely.
Can you say that again for the people in the back?
Regulation.
Can you say it louder for the professional association?
Let's go. Honestly, terrible.
I've been calling out in quotes the Instagram because I, as also a former hairdresser, I worked in the salon for about how many years, and I've done similar work to you, not on your level there because I'm not.
Don't be doing that. You be doing your stuff.
I've been doing my stuff. But in seeing that, I'm very frustrated with the lack of regulation in people like having an idea. Like, I could do hair. There's nothing wrong with leaning into your creativity and your talent and your skill, but the importance of customer service, the importance of really understanding your client and building that relationship is being lost in this kind of McDonald's fast food type way of doing hair and making money. I record a little bit about not bringing race into it because I do think we are not honest about how there are black people who do not even like Afro hair, who would deign to even show their hair. They'll hide it and they'll just be embarrassed or scared or fearful or whatever. But I think race does have to play into it, because a lot of the comments were as well from white mothers who said, no, absolutely not. I researched, I Googled, I made the effort, I did all this. My mixed race children's hair is didded. And I make the effort because I know it's important. So there are white mothers specifically, and white parents, I should say, who are taking that extra time. And that was a snapshot where I was like, this poor mixed race girl, what is she hearing? What is she experiencing? And what was holding back her mother or her carer from doing that extra research? Because she wasn't a young girl. She was about 12, 13 maybe. So why has it taken this long to find some sort of... I'm not necessarily saying it's impossible, that they didn't try, but it just seemed like, why is she here? Why at this age is she still having this issue?
It's called accountability. Accountability doesn't know age, gender, position, life, currency. It's called awareness, a sense of humanity, a sort of a sense of a willingness to do the best with what you got and be accountable. That's what it is. You can put all the other toppings on as you want to. It doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. Everyone deserves to be loved and respected equally. How you view that and the lens that you view that through determines the passage that you then walk on.
Fair. So what do we do with like? So
No.
Yeah, I was like, yeah,
No.
It's fair.
Literally, it doesn't matter.
And I swear, I just feel like she wanted a viral moment as well, because the mother, because his videos are popular. Like, it's just like, how can I get my daughter into that space and thinking that there's going to be nothing wrong with it? Because if you look back at the other videos before that went viral, there wasn't that many negative comments, right? There was other people who was saying similar things, similar rhetoric, how unmanageable curly hair is, but the comments weren't. It kind of like didn't hit the black spaces, let's say, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know why this one particularly stood out, because it's true, but also what people have been saying, and subsequently, and however long he's been doing this, is that he blocks anyone that says negativity.
Oh yeah, of course.
So then you see the kind of the supportive side of it. So maybe, I don't know why this one broke through.
I think because it was like a white mother taking the mixed race girl. So
I think there were others
pulling that, not that I went through. I didn't go far. Like your research, but I definitely looked on the page, and that seemed to be the only moment where you clearly see the mum bringing in a child, that whole scenario. And obviously I think the first person to rip it, and their commentary was white mother takes mixed race. So that's gonna...
And it's gonna go viral.
Yeah, that's gonna go viral.
But this is the thing, it's just like, I think, well, it's good that those white mothers are actually, or white parents in general, are speaking out. Because when I think about it, do you know who taught me to do hair? My friend who was mixed race, her mum, who's white, yeah?
Really?
She's British. She taught me how to twist. She taught me how to cane roll, right? Like, do you know what I mean? This is pre-internet. Pre-internet. There's no way. Do you know what I mean? She went out of her way to learn. She learned from her husband's family, the community, and everything like that. That's what she did. But she didn't change. She didn't have to change herself. She didn't have to. She didn't have to put her kids in harm's way to get them to look decent for school.
Yeah.
So with that said,
Mm.
I'm going to ask now, even in this context and how we're having this conversation, we're segregating by race or ethnicity. And we've said not me, you guys have said many times the word white, which is typecasting a whole group of people. And you've just identified that there was a specific individual who happens to be white that actually taught you, who happened to be a black woman, how to do hair that would be on a black woman. So just in that sentence, then you've just sort of contradicted and opened up a whole space of what the irony of the bigger issue is that we're not addressing, but we keep using race to segregate the actual real issue versus recognizing that what we're talking about here is people's capacity and ability to do the job. Race comes into the conversation, but not at the level that where we keep holding this race conversation. Yeah. We're holding race as if it's the pinnacle of what it is, and it actually isn't. It's actually what separates everyone from being able to actually get to the point of actually teaching someone how to ethically handle and work with all hair patterns and do it at a standard. So wherever you go, whomever you are, you should be able to see a hairdresser and have your hair attended to.
Yeah.
Which is what we should be discussing, and we're not, because we keep separating it based on inherent biases and segregation through culture and the proximity to access.
Yeah, I think this is just my lived experience.
Correct.
Just, you know what I mean? To hone in on the point as well. It's just that I can't go in my local area where I live and go, like, say, I'm in my wig era at the moment, right? So every month, I should be doing it every 2 weeks. I just want to wash my hair, get some cane rolls, put my wig back on, right? That's all I want to do. I can't go in my local area into any standard, white owned.
What's your local area?
Pimlico.
Right.
Yeah. White owned, usually, do you know what I mean? Or makeup in the salon, and just get my hair cane rolled, washed and cane rolled. Because they don't have the skill to do it.
Exactly.
So it's just like that goes hand in hand. So I hear what you're saying, but it's just like more than likely if I go, a couple of stops further, do you know what I mean?
Into the less gentrified areas. Let's call it what it is, because I'm a product of that. That's why I worked in West End.
Yeah, okay.
At the times that I worked in West End, which was many years ago, I don't live in the UK anymore. And the reason why I primarily put myself in Oxford Circus, Mayfair, Soho and Covent Garden was there were very few, and even today I still think there's very few people who happen to be black that can operate at a high level consistently on time and have the client and have the client in and out on time, with whether that was a weave install, a blowout, a press and set, wash and go treatment, and still do highlights on all of the other hair patterns.
I can't think of one place in the West End.
I mean, there are some places now that I think exist, but that's why.
A hair bar.
But I did that simply because, without trying to burst into tears, you all three deserve to walk into a luxury environment and be seen and treated as equal as anyone else, or however your aspirations may precede you.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be robbed of that. And so there's been a low level of performance in the arts and the efficacy of holding academies accountable. There's no legislation around top tier ruthless education around managing Afro hair. You've happened to end up having subsidiary. Yes, people that have taken it on their own back. To start doing academies here and there, and then they're flooded with people who want to learn, but there's been no sort of big colleges taking this as a standard to pass your MVQ levels, whatever that may be, or your cutting performances in the US, and holding it at the same standard, and then having people to assess it that understand fluidity with hair patterns. That's also another thing. It's one thing about having someone who happens to be black teaching you how to work with Afro hair, which is an issue, by the way, I take to that. But you need to have someone who understands how to work with hair patterns and have fluidity with that, because the curly hair spectrum isn't specific to one ethnic group. And that's also another issue that we're not discussing here. So when we are discussing it and we're using the words white or black, you're missing out a whole group of people. And that's the other problem. And most people can't segregate from what they're hearing. So when you keep marginalizing the conversation, you keep segregating the conversation.
Okay.
Oh, my lips are tied because I want to be like, well, that black woman and that black. I want to do that.
And you're right with all of that, but it's all fluff when it's really what we really need to be getting to is, why is this happening?
So why is this happening?
And there's a lot of reasons that I think we continue to idolize this notion of straighter is better is pornography, artistry, music, animation, systemic biases in cultures and religions, and then just the language that we're choosing to articulate our best intention. But because we're not etiquettely, eloquently trained in how to use language, myself included, I've learned along the way the power of saying this doesn't look right to somebody and how that sticks with them for the rest of their lives.
True.
And we do that inherently within our cultures.
Do you know what I watched this weekend? Yes. No, yesterday, sorry. The BET Awards.
Mhm.
And it's just, as you said about artistry, and it's the dancers. That's a thing. And I always wonder, like, black dancers and the vision of hair flicking, and it's a thing. Oof. And I've been like,
come on now.
I always have that thing, like, so what's wrong with an Afro flick or a braid flick? And I know that braids kind of can emulate. I mean, I'm doing this, but it's twists.
But even braids is so kind of new-ish for all the dancers that I've known.
Exactly.
They all had to get weaves.
Like, to get weaves.
Because
See,
you needed the swoosh. It was like
this
a part of the
conversation.
movement.
Yeah.
I have not heard someone talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
You know what I mean?
it's always stuck with me from young.
The swish.
The swish.
Yeah,
the
Like,
swish.
why do they...
That's not race specific. That's
But it's not. This
No,
is
no,
not
it's not
race.
race-specific,
This is
but
now. This is
it's
now
the
biases.
standard. It's the standard to have the swish as part
because
of a
some
routine.
cultures just dance with their hair.
But this isn't. Yes, but this is.
And that has been normalized and standardized as the
That's
as
what
the
you
aesthetic.
do.
Yes,
Yeah.
but also
Yes.
it's the construct of if your hair is pertained to look in a certain way,
Yeah.
then you have a certain amount of access.
Yes.
That also doesn't stick with just the pattern, it's also the color of it.
Yes.
That's also a different conversation for
Yes.
the time. But recognizing also as a professional, I think it's critical and important to help people recognize the African diaspora also has a full roster of hair patterns that are also known to the Black human. And that is also something that is widely unknown. And so the education is very underwhelming. The gaslighting is extraordinary. And that for me is problematic. And until we're ready to do the real work and really assess the language and what we're using to articulate our true intention versus how we're feeling, I think we're not going to arrive on the bridge where we should be meeting together.
Speaking of feeling, because there's sensitivity to everything that Black people experience on a day-to-day, the stereotypes, the biases, the racism, the prejudice, and all that stuff, there is a sensitivity and a feeling to discussing this quite honestly. So even in the world that you're in, where maybe convincing or having that conversation about actually let's go the natural, let's embrace the Afro, let's be more natural with this. How have you navigated those conversations with maybe clientele who have been very used to, well, if I have my hair straight or if I look like this, I know I'm going to get more work, versus actually, let's lean into your naturalness.
Okay.
As carefully as you can conversate.
So I'm just doing something that my husband told me, which is you're not responsible for your first thought, but you're responsible for your second thought. So let me process this. Because I can give you tea.
I know. I mean, keep your job, please.
my job, I'll always be working. But that's been one of the reasons why I've always pertained to have an honest clientele. When you see my work, it's never been to fit anything but the intention of the client. I think that's also an issue in the industry. People doing work to pay bills, you show up differently.
Yeah.
I get asked to show up for who I am, not what I want to be. It's a big difference. And so my artistry is authentic and trying to collaborate with individuals that haven't arrived there yet can be very, very, very toxic and very exhausting, very challenging, very lonely, and can often make you wonder if what you're doing is not necessarily the right thing, but is it the most important thing?
I hear it.
And when you know that everyone before that person has walked into your chair to find their most beautiful self, you can't let that one moment of someone's vulnerability who has not walked into the courage yet stop you from doing what you know is the light at the end of the tunnel.
Sure.
And that's what keeps me going. And so whether it's a famous client or not, I'm fully cognizant that they are still walking in the storm and weathering that storm. And it's my job to take your hand and walk with you. That's my job. My job isn't here to judge you. My job isn't here to hold you accountable for any of the things that I know why you're doing it. But my job is to take your hand and let me take you on this consultation and show you how you can be your most beautiful with everything that you have access to, which is choice.
Yeah.
And let them know that because your hair is curly, because your hair is Afro, you have the most versatile pattern out there. Please allow me to show you this. And when I can take you on that journey, it's unmatched. I can't even, I'm sweating and I'm trying not to cry, but it's such a rewarding opportunity that I think we've robbed ourselves of. And society has contributed to that in the essence of trying to search for validation through vessels that are not set up to pulse you. And that is toxic. And that is the problem. And so when I look at that footage, I don't see race in the construct of how we're viewing it. I don't see a professional. I don't see a mother. What I see is another human who has come into this world and has already been told that they're not worthy of anything.
Yeah.
How do we, without me bursting into tears, how do we stop that from happening? And that for me is the most critical part of what we should be taking away. And then we have services that are being bipartisan to allow you to feel crippled. How we continue to pay into that. What are we doing to be better and do better? This young girl should not have to feel that what is growing from her body is unmanageable. How do you imagine that's making her feel internally? But this is nothing to do with race or gender, and this is just how we've humanized how we should be identified. And so it's just way more layered, and it's way beyond the instant what we're looking at in that perimeter of that video. The nuances are so much more deeper, and we all are responsible for doing and being better. Who's actually ready to do that?
I think it's no, honestly, I think it's so challenging. Like I was thinking about like natural hairstyles on the red carpet and that sort of thing, and like when it goes wrong, and I don't mean like goes wrong in terms of like they don't look good, but like, you know, that the response from the media is very negative. So like I think of Zendaya when she had the locks, and how that women on the E! Show were saying that she must smell of weed or things like that. And that was like quite early-ish on in her career, and how that the impact of that, like what was that conversation to have with the stylist to say, we're going to make this choice? Is there like the foresight to say, you're probably going to get some backlash? Was there not like, is it expected when you're working with like red carpet clients to have that conversation about how your hair, if you make this choice, and I'm going to hold your hand while we're making this choice, but you're probably going to get some negative backlash with it. How do you manage that?
Thank you for that question. It's a very honest question. And also very layered. What I will say, and I'll speak from my experiences because that's all I can do, and I'll use Lupita as an example. We've been working together almost 12 years now, from the beginning of her sort of existence into the media world. I was primarily her hairdresser on the European side, and when I moved to the US, I became full-time with her. And she actually says it better than I say it. We've never had a conversation about what other people are going to think about when her showing up. We've never had that conversation. The conversations that we have had, how do we achieve what you want to desire while you still showing up your most authentic self?
Right.
That's a different conversation than trying to pertain to what people should think about you versus you showing up as you. And when you show up who you are, people only have one choice, is to get to know you or you get left out of the conversation. You don't give them the option. When you start ifing and butting around what you should be doing, I think that shows. And I think that's what you're speaking to. I can proudly say in the 12 years that I've worked with her, she has not walked the carpet with straight hair, meaning blown out, bone straight, in any of the styles that I've done for her. And I've done
a lot
of
Yeah.
styles.
pretty, like, you know, and covers. And not once have we not shown the authenticity of the Afro hair pattern within any of those styles.
Is there?
That's amazing.
Was it easy?
Absolutely.
No. That's another podcast.
Yeah.
Is there? Because I felt like when Lupita landed and we all were like, oh, save us. But I remember having people tell me that I only like her because you're so Black Panther.
Oh my
you're
God,
so
that
Black
was
Power.
the standard thing,
And they
isn't it?
wouldn't, so there were a lot of people that, I say a lot, but in the comments, in the social world, that you just like her because you're just trying to be political and da-da-da. And she's not really, you don't really think she's beautiful because the people are struggling with their thing. But also they're, on the flip side, because she is African and because she is the stereotype that we assume an African woman to look like, I'm saying there is there a freedom for her in who she is? And then also when you look at someone like Amanda Stanberg or Willow Smith being lighter and having those hairstyles, is there a different kind of perception? And I'm thinking in reaction to what happened with Zendaya, is it seem if you're lighter skinned, then maybe you're cosplaying in the natural space, especially if you go into the locks or the afro. What are the conversations about shade?
That's you're talking about colorism in a way.
I understand, but
that
also
is
texturism
within the community, though.
Yeah.
That's I think the bigger issue is internal colorism.
Yeah.
How when we show up in a room, how you're already judging someone because of your perception of their tone and shade of skin tone and how that may compare to you in the spaces that you're in. I can't speak to people because that's we're dealing with that right now, so we need to check on that and figure out how we deal with that mentally. Go to a therapist.
A black man?
Finding one of those as well is also an issue. I had one and she walked out on me. That's also another thing. Why did I have to do something?
Why she walked out?
Well, I mean, I'm using that and saying like her in terms of cutting ties, you know? But you know, when you're dealing with abandonment issues and culturally is what you deal with, in every space that you walk into, someone is letting you down or walking away. That's a real thing that we deal with, which then resonates back into how you wear your hair. And this is what I'm talking about. It's extraordinarily layered. And so, but what I also want to be mindful and graceful to other communities that I am not exposed to because I'm not part of that community, and I would be lost on me to imagine that we are the only community that have deficits in some capacity or whatever way. And so you have to be mindful about this lady who ended up walking in with her daughter who presents as white, but we don't know where she's from because white comes in many different tones as well. And that is something that we're not cognizant of. And we have to be mindful of that. And so what her background is, what her means were never met, and how she became to even be having a child, we don't know any of that. And that plays into where she's arrived and why she's arrived at this position to bring her daughter to a place where they feel that they're going to have something that's going to be life-changing for them. And the life impact on her, in this case, what I believe to have straight hair, is going to be not only manageable for the daughter, but it's going to be easier for her, allegedly seeing her daughter with potentially a smile on her face. And if you're a parent and a guardian and seeing your child, I mean, I could burst into tears. Like, you're going to go to the end of the world to make sure that is done at all costs, even if you know that next week you may have to change that idea, but next week is not probably guaranteed, especially on your circumstances. So I say all this just to say it's really important to consider why people are making choices. And if you don't know, I think it's really critical. I think it's really important that we hold space for it, because what we end up doing is baiting something that's really layered with just random fluff, which race becomes that part in the conversations like this, when this young girl is left to feel unworthy, irrespective of what she looks like, because we've been telling her that what you have is not great the way that it is, and we haven't put out the right tools to help you manage that expectation.
So what would you have said to the mother and child if they came into your space?
So what I have said, and people that have come in, it's really important to understand the why. And so when anyone walks and sits in my chair, they're very frustrated because they're like, oh, I just want to get this done. I'm like, that's cute. But that's not going to happen today because we got to understand why this is happening. And this is one of my reasons why I hate makeover shows, because doing this for 2 minutes.
Oh, serious?
But it's not a makeover. You're gaslighting someone. And you're saying, and then it's not obtainable.
Because they can't maintain.
And this is why this is true. This is another podcast we can do.
We got Siri, we've got a podcast.
I wish we had hours. I would love to talk about it.
Because they've always frustrated me, but I've never been able to articulate why I get frustrated watching it. It's that.
And this is why, if you look at all my work, you very, 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 very rarely find, and I'm going to call myself out here now, me doing work on hair transformations. It's not, you can't do it in 2 minutes. Whereas these 60 seconds blowout, and step by step. I'm sorry. Even if you go into a blowout bar, no matter the hair pattern, you can't do this in 60 seconds, 1 minute. So me putting a video out there, I find it to be very contradictory to the true ability and capability of the professional and of the consumer at home. And so we're just gaslighting everyone, and that's the problem.
Do this.
And we're not managing expectations. And when you don't manage expectations, you live in a space where people are lost and searching for validation through other streams. And that's what we're doing. You're searching it through putting on things that may make you present a certain character, and you may feel great, but it's not sustainable. And then you're searching for it, so you keep reinvesting. We use this currency, money as currency, and so you keep spending, thinking that you're sort of reinvesting in a sense of self, and actually it's just self-deprecation. And there's no amount of money or sense of style that should allow you to feel you're most beautiful. You should already know what that is, and everything else should be like a token of an added personality, an extended sort of, or the ego of who you are. And that's why when you look at what I say, and this is a whole different conversation, is when you look at the trans community, people who are just fluid in themselves, they are the most grounded people that you'll ever have access to.
I hear you.
They are unbothered, and they are so deep connected to who they are that they choose to walk in courage. And to walk in courage is a testimony to survival, which most of us don't do. We play victim, and we are compromised, and we are eased by feeling commercially valued. And so we submit to the ideas of the consciousness of how we should portray ourselves. And this is what I'm talking about. It's super layered, and it's very complex. And I don't think we're really ready to sort of, why are people having a go at this girl straightening her hair when most of you wear wigs that are straight?
Well, yeah.
Let's be very, you all get your sewing. It doesn't matter how it was done. The end result is what you're arriving to.
I would say that the straightening, I think the journey to the straightening was not...
Correct.
The journey to the straightening was the issue rather than getting it straightened. But there is a conversation about straightening and when you live
But the reason why straight is more desirable.
Where is the desire coming from as well? That desire is learnt. And we're assuming, because it's a very small clip, that is learnt from her mother. That's what we're assuming by watching that small clip.
I was assuming from society as well.
I was assuming that her mum didn't potentially have the skill set to weather and manage how that should be pertained to. Maybe she doesn't have extended groups that could help her manage that as well. But also recognizing that this guy had almost like a magic wand to wave to sort of change that feel and vibes. And when you go through social and see all these hyperlapse of people's emotions being amazing, you want that dopamine, and so you're attracted to it. So there's a lot of things that you are attracted to make you want to sort of be bipartisan to this idea. And then you see it through pornography, you see it through animation, you see it through dance, you see it through the artists that you admire to be, you see it through what's professional, you see it and how people even we respond to, you go, oh my God, your hair. And that, you don't even have to say hair. It's just your body's like, wow. And even all that is all they're going to remember.
We're not
so true. Also,
I would say not to labour on
But am I making sense?
No, oh my God, to take us to church and back.
I just want to make
Like,
sure that
the word is the
It's
word.
actually so needed
Yeah.
for the conversation to graduate past this is annoying to see, or this is on the mother, to really actually just sit down. I'm sitting here in myself. Like when you described the journey that somebody would come to for you for a consultation, honestly, I was on the verge of tears. Like I dreamed to have that journey
Yeah.
with a hairdresser.
Right.
Mm.
And I
So
should
to actually just be able to just
take your
have my
hand.
hair and sit down and be like, you know what? It would look its best like this.
Yes.
But no one's ever said, I see you. No one's ever said, I want to see you. No one's even said, how can I be of service to you?
Precisely.
And no one said, let's weather through the ugly storm with you.
And
I have
grow
these
to where,
storms because
yeah.
I have clients like you all the time, and I'm in tears with clients all the time. And I say to people, I'm your best advocate, not because I'm good at what I do. It's because I know what it feels like to not be loved. I know what it feels like to be abused physically, mentally, and emotionally. And I know what it feels like to walk into spaces and not be seen. I can be my best of being of service by hopefully not making anyone that has the privilege of sitting in my chair with me feel that way ever again. And that's why I do what I do.
That's why it is a vocation. And that's probably why, actually, for a lot of us watching it, it triggered a lot.
Yes.
That's why.
Yes.
It is like, because you sat in a hairdresser's chair and been shamed.
Or feel shame.
Yeah.
So you already show up feeling a certain way, but that isn't the hairdresser's responsibility.
No. It's just...
Or even yours. It's all your circumstances that has allowed you to sort of embody this inherent shame. Where and how has that become the norm? And that's the thing that I want to continue to explore, because once we start layering that and unpacking it, we can then to start have more grace and respect for each other, which then allows us to have more peaceful conversations about the why and not be targeted by gender or race, and just look at our capacity to do and be better as people.
Yeah, I hear it.
You spoke about accountability, right? And
Like on another note.
And we didn't want to, we've spoken about the mother, we've spoken about the child, we've spoken about us. We haven't spoken about the hairdresser. And I understand it's not about necessarily, and also, especially in your position as hairdresser, don't want to do that. However, what I also reacted negatively to was his behavior for his social media account. I don't know this hairdresser. I don't know anything, but he incensed me because I felt this underlying dislike or disdain for actual curly hair and his making money off our pain. And that could be whether you're black, white, but that thing about curly hair needing to be straight, he was buying into that and profiting off it. And I hated it. I was angry with it. What do we do with hairdressers like that? Because there is a thing about having any hairdresser, you being able to walk into any hairdressers and get your cane rose and walk out without having to, I've got to go to the black space. But there's also something about people that are not from our community profiting off of our pain and not respecting who we are, why we're sitting in the chair, not giving the conversation that you would give to a client. And maybe that's too much expectation. But what do we do with the Emerson Giuliani?
I think the question that's not been asked and what you're asking me, which I think I'm going to rephrase it, because as a professional, there's someone that's offering a service, and services are given if there's a place for it.
Demand for it.
And so it doesn't really matter who is doing the service at this particular point. There's a demand for it.
Okay.
And it's being demanded from everyone and anyone. And there are many hairdressers of all ethnicities and ages in all locations providing that service. For me, it's more about recognizing the fluidity within the services. So as a professional, when I used to do keratines or relaxers, and it's so funny, anyone that, even if any of my clients are watching this, they always knew I used to really hate relaxing their hair. And I would do my best to mix as little as that activated lotion in it and leave it on for longer and then tell them it was conditioning their hair. And it's just going to soften the texture. But anyone that knows about working with the Afro hair, diaspora of the Afro hair pattern. It's very complex, it's very fragile. And so I was always of the mindset is, how can I give you what you want, but still respect the integrity of the wellness of the hair?
Yes.
And so I would always ask everyone, can I meet you here? I can't give you this, but can I meet you here? And if I can meet you here, I can promise you that you're going to have a healthier hair experience. And I think what is not happening is there's a lack of, I want to use the word education, but it's not as simple as that. There's a lack of, curiosity in how to best use products for best services.
Right.
And so there's not how everything is listed on the back of a product is how you should then be performing holistically throughout your product offerings or your service offerings.
Got you.
And that's not to say that obviously everything has to have a legal requirement on the back. You have to make sure everyone's covering their backs. I understand that. But there has to be something to be said for when you're, like, if I was to relax each and every one of you guys' hair, I would have to apply it differently because of your, not even texture, but because of your lifestyles.
Okay.
Which is more important than actually your pattern of your hair. Because your lifestyle tells me your ability to maintain and be accountable for the care. And that is what I'm talking about when I talk about accountability. It doesn't really matter what you look like. What do you have the capacity to deal with? That is really critical, because I can give you the best service in the world, but if you don't know how to maintain that or have the finances or time to even invest in what that may look like, best believe my brilliance of artistry is going to look real
Mash up.
My point, but that is something you have to be mindful of. So it doesn't matter about who, what, where, and why. It matters that you understand people's capacity and how they're being accountable with managing this before, during, and after. And that is something that is not consistently thought through on both ends.
So I
hear it.
I kind of, it's more like my observation, right? I feel like sometimes like Black women and their hair in particular is really targeted. It's almost like vegans, how people have such very strong opinions and they want to shame you into change, right? Do you know what I mean? And I see that and I think like, well, why doesn't this apply to people who are blonde, right? And the industry that is surrounding keeping blonde women blonde, right? I think there's I'm interested in that, why that's a thing. And then also I just wondered like I feel like what you're talking about is guardianship. Like it's like your role when you're with your clients is like the guardianship of the hair and I don't want to go too deep with it, but like, do you know what I mean?
Go
like
deep. We like it
a
deep.
sense of like essence and a purity of who you are.
Yeah.
And that where does that come from? Is that something that is applied to, or do other hairdressers have this in other cultures? That's the thing. I don't know if that's the case.
So
yeah.
I pick up what you're putting down for sure. The color aspect, I'm going to respectfully decline commenting on that because I think we all know the answer to what that is, and that's a whole different topic. There are many topics that we need to discuss. I also want to quickly go back to a point you made about natural hair as well. I think there's this misconception of what that may look like as well, because I think when you see your hair in a natural form, which means if it's curly, wavy, or straight, you know, if your hair if you have color on your hair, it's no longer natural.
Yeah.
So this is very clear. Even if it's in the curly state or lock state, if you've had a chemical that's had some sort of reaction on the hair strand, it's no longer natural. It may mimic a natural nuance of a pattern. That's great. But even just talking about the essence of what that really is, there's really been no language or etiquette or accountability around that. So what you end up having is this sort of overwhelming discussions around how we should be showing up. And when we're then trying to find imagery to mimic what we're saying, we're using the wrong stuff to help us lead
Yeah.
to a passage of wealth and health.
Yeah.
And so that's also another conversation that we're not having. And then when you talk about, you're talking about the idea of having the
Guardianship.
guardianship, that's really humbling to hear that. I haven't heard of a description like that, but that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Makes total sense. And I thank you for introducing me to that language of thinking about how I offer what I do. And it is a sense of guardianship, but it comes from a place of wanting to help you register that what you have from the get-go was already great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was already good enough.
Mm.
All these other things, colouring extensions, hair up, hair down, these are add-ons.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
you don't love what you have to begin with, how are you going to love where you are going?
Yeah.
Mm.
Aim.
Yeah.
That is what my mission is to help reconcile with the construct that when you show up with me, I'm already appreciated that you made it here.
Yeah.
Mm.
We're already winning.
Okay.
Everything else, we're just having a party and laughing. And that's when you see the people who I have the privilege of working with are so unbothered when they wear the styles that we create because it's nothing unexpected. Of course we can do this. Of course I'm going to show up like this. Why wouldn't I? And that's what you have. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing people present themselves in their full form. And this thing that I've created with them just happens to be there.
I think
isn't that exciting to be not to have isn't that fun?
All the bars, all the tea, all the everything. Just to wrap up on that, because what this guardianship that you're speaking of, it isn't in every hairdresser. You don't get that from every hairdresser. You don't get that care. And I think there's something about when you just go to school and learn and you go and do, or you just do, you're not even thinking, sometimes not even given afforded the chance to think about your client in that way because you got to turn over. If you're working in a salon, you've got to get the people out, and if you're in a black salon, then hey, you might be there till midnight. So you're trying to get your clients through. So that having the I say luxury because it is a luxury to even be sitting in someone like sitting in your chair, or someone like you, it's something that we shouldn't take for granted. And if we could bottle it and sell it and teach it, that would be amazing.
Well, that's also called education. That's something that I've been trying to advocate for.
Yeah.
When we think about education, it's just about putting pen to paper or showing someone how to lift a comb and a scissors. It's about etiquette. It's about intentionality. It's about accountability. It's about managing expectations. It's about why are you saying the words that you're saying? Do they have any meanings, or are you just filling spaces? And if you don't know what you don't know, are you articulating that? And then whom you are articulating that to, are they fluid enough to be able to regurgitate a response that fits within your nuance? I identified earlier, maybe not on camera, but I'm dyslexic. And so someone else's blue may be grey to me. Are you able to recognize that? And most often people that stand in these shoes of education are not. And so you end up having a disproportionate amount of creatives show up to be their most affluent self and arrive at a place and feel extraordinarily debilitated because the systems are not set up to help them thrive. And when you talk about diversity and inclusivity, it shouldn't be about race. That's my point that I keep talking about. So race keeps being a part of a conversation that is really crippling us from actually have humanity at the core of everything that we're doing. And whilst it plays an integral role, it is not the role of us surviving as humans. And that's the point that I'm trying to help everyone get to a place to understand. Yes, your feelings matter. We all, the fly that you squashed had feelings. It matters, but it's how and why are you reserving beyond your feelings to be a part of this graceful exchange that we're having?
Vernon, you've got to come back.
Honestly, I want an appointment.
Honestly, I need your hand in my hair.
But am I making it's like people say it's philosophy? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I was told I was stupid, and so I'm sitting in this chair going, I spent almost 40 years thinking I was worth nothing. And then to realize that I'm on this trajectory to helping us be better as humans through the nuances of hair is wild.
I want to get into, it's important.
But it is
I was raised as a Rastafarian, and so my upbringing and hair regimen was different. Your hair was your pride.
Yeah.
So podcast number 2.
We want you back because we want to get
Yeah.
into how you became so like this.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And to discuss it further as
yeah.
well and to build on it, because I actually think it's blown my mind, and I can only imagine when people watch this where their mind is going to go with it. But I do think we'd have to have more transformational conversations about how we even think about hair. And I'm thinking we could talk about black hairdressing, like just even having that, like I'm going to go to a black hairdresser. I think there's lots of things that we have to talk about to reshape our human experience.
But with the language, because I
Yes.
would talk about Afro hairdressing, not black.
Precisely. Exactly. Like to move it along. Yeah.
So, guys, that has been an Auntie-vention with
An anti-vention.
Vernon Francois.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me and creating space for this conversation
I
and
appreciate
helping me
you.
feel safe, I guess. We'll wait for the comments to come in. But
I think it'll be
Amazing.
all praises. Honestly, it's been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much.
it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Bye, anytime. Guys, we'll be back. Bye.
Oh, Vernon, that was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.